The first time the galaxy saw Marcus Hale, he was barefoot, handcuffed, and laughing at the monster that was supposed to kill him. 10 seconds later their undefeated champion was on his back and the human was still smiling. Later they would replay those seconds and call it the moment the Vortak Empire stopped laughing at Earth. The arena gates opened with a metallic growl and a sheet of white light. Marcus stepped onto red sand while a wall of noise crashed down from the stands. Thousands of aliens packed the tiers, and hovering screens zoomed in on him. One skinny human in torn gray prison cloth, wrists locked in thick metal cuffs. They had not taken his training. A shimmering barrier snapped shut behind him. The pit ahead was a ring of jagged stone and half-buried spikes. The announcer's voice rolled in from every direction, carried by speakers and the translator node humming at the base of his skull. Behold, citizens of the Vortak Empire, the primitive from Earth. Fragile. Soft. Undeserving of the stars. The crowd jeered. Marcus let his shoulders sag and his breathing hitch. He widened his eyes, let them dart from pillar to pillar as if searching for an exit. Just so we are clear, he murmured, this is your best guy, right? The translator flattened the sarcasm. A few spectators chittered. Most heard only a frightened animal. Along the rim of the arena, 4 guards and exorcists leaned on their rifles, bored. Across the pit a larger gate boomed open. The sound from the crowd doubled. Krultor, champion of the Vortak arenas, ducked into view and filled the opening. He was 3 meters of muscle and plated hide, 7 amber eyes burning above tusks capped in metal. Our beloved champion faces his simplest trial, the announcer purred. A single unarmed human. Witness how quickly the myth of human ferocity dies. Somewhere in a locked alliance file his record still read Lieutenant Marcus Hale, and 7, killed in action. Unofficially, he was standing barefoot in a gladiator pit and being introduced as a joke. Krultor stopped a few paces away, his shadow falling over Marcus. He spoke in his own harsh tongue first, then repeated in slower syllables. Human, he rumbled, you kneel, you squeal, you die. Crowd likes quick. Marcus ran his gaze along the champion's armor plates and joints, the way his weight settled a little heavier on the left leg. Then he gave a small, tired smile. My last trainer said almost the same thing, he answered. He was nicer to look at, though. The meaning hit the stands a moment later. Some laughed. More roared. Brave mouth, soft body, Krultor said. I break both. He lunged. To the crowd it looked like the human panicked and moved too late. Marcus let the first massive fist clip his shoulder and send him into the sand. Pain flared, but while he stayed down just a heartbeat too long he watched the way the cuffs flexed when he twisted his wrists, how the field shimmered at the edge of his vision, where the closest guard tower stood. Krultor came at him twice more, heavy blows that tumbled him through the dust. Each time Marcus made sure something minor hurt, and something important did not. From the stands it was a beating. From his point of view it was a survey. The announcer finally filled the pause. Human, you may request mercy. Many species find it eases the transition to non-existence. Marcus spat sand and looked straight into a hovering camera node. On Earth, he said, we have a saying. 3rd time is the charm. The calm in his voice cut through the noise. Krultor did not wait for the translator. He charged again, both fists raised for a double hammer blow meant to drive the human into the ground. Marcus did not dodge late this time. He stepped in close so the descending fists could not build full power, slammed his shoulder into Krultor's exposed side, and hooked his bound hands behind one massive knee. The champion's weight shifted. Sand slid under his feet. As the big alien stumbled, Marcus twisted his wrists. He had felt the weakness in the cuffs with every impact, a tiny give in one hinge. Human bone, conditioned the way N7 conditioned it, could push harder than most aliens believed. He drove that strength outward in one sharp motion. The metal shrieked and split. Broken halves of the cuffs spun away and hit the sand. For a heartbeat the arena fell utterly silent. No laughter. No taunts. Even the hum of the barrier seemed to fade. Marcus straightened, rolling his freed shoulders, flexing his fingers as feeling rushed back into them. Without the hunched posture and chains, he no longer looked like a terrified captive. His stance settled, feet balanced, hands loose, gaze steady and very cold. "You said quick," Marcus murmured, knowing the mics would catch it. "I am trying not to be offended." Krultor roared and swung in pure rage, a wide hook aimed at his head. Marcus moved like he had been waiting for that angle from the moment the gates opened. He slipped inside the swing, drove his palm up under the alien's jaw, and swept the same leg he had unbalanced before. He hit the sand with a crash that shook dust from the nearest pillars. The stands erupted, some screaming denial, others wild cheers. Marcus took one step back, chest rising a little faster now but eyes calm and sharp. For the first time he let the faint smile drop. Under it there was nothing soft at all. Krultor wheezed, lifted his head, and stared at him, taking in the stance, the balance, the utter lack of fear. When he finally forced out words, his voice was raw but it carried to the highest tier. "He is no ordinary human." The declaration from Krultor rippled through the arena like a shockwave. Aliens who had been laughing moments earlier now leaned forward with stiffened spines and uncertain eyes. The champion pushed himself upright, wheezing, his armor dented and his pride bleeding out faster than his breath. Marcus stood a few paces away, relaxed but alert, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make the entire pit feel smaller. For the first time, the Vortax spectators looked at the human not as prey but as something they had no name for yet. A few camera drones swooped closer, capturing every detail of his breathing, the sweat sliding down his temple, the tiny twitch in his fingers that only someone trained at elite levels would notice. Everything about him contradicted what they thought humans were. The announcer struggled to find his voice, and when he did it cracked, a sound that spread a ripple of discomfort through the staff. "The human appears to possess enhanced physical conditioning. Possibly chemical augmentation. Possibly. The repetition betrayed his panic. Marcus appreciated the honesty, even if unintentional. He brushed dust from his shoulder, as Krultor dragged himself into a crouch. The alien's 7 eyes were wide and flashing with a deeper color, something between confusion and fear. Marcus walked a slow circle around him, studying the champion's breathing pattern and predicting the next move before it happened. The crowd's noise built again, but it was different now. Louder, sharper, threaded with uncertainty. Krultor pushed to his feet with a grunt but did not attack. That alone sent murmurs through the stands. The announcer attempted to regain control, loudly declaring that the fight would continue until the human was pulverized or the champion could no longer stand. Marcus lifted an eyebrow at that, and the closest drone captured it, broadcasting the expression across every screen. The alien guards closest to the arena shifted their footing. They had seen prisoners try to run, try to fight, try to plead. They had never seen a prisoner stand calmly after breaking their restraints like they were made of cheap plastic. Krultor inhaled deeply, his chest plates expanding. Marcus recognized the pattern instantly. He had watched footage of Vortac physiology back when Earth first encountered the species, long before his capture. Krultor was preparing a venom spray release, one that could melt through armor plating. Marcus stepped 1 foot backward, lowering his center of gravity. The crowd recognized the champion's preparation and roared approval. This, they were sure, would end the fight. Krultor reared back and unleashed a wave of acidic mist, a weapon that had ended dozens of opponents in seconds. Marcus rolled beneath the arc, the venom hissing through the air. He came up behind Krultor before the spray finished, his shoulder slamming into the alien's spine. Krultor staggered forward, the mist drifting harmlessly into the sand. Marcus had read that the venom weakened the alien's own muscles momentarily. As Krultor tried to pivot, the human's hand closed on the champion's forearm and twisted sharply. Krultor dropped to one knee, bellowing in pain. The stands erupted again, but this time the sound was pure confusion. Marcus stepped back and exhaled, his chest rising as his heart found a steady rhythm again. He had not fought just to win. He had fought to see who was watching. And across the arena walls, dozens of small black lenses glowed faintly. Not normal arena cameras. Not Vortac standard models. Something else. A pattern he recognized from classified N7 briefings flashed in the back of his thoughts. The Vortak were broadcasting this match not just to the Empire, but to the illegal shadow networks that fed information to warlords, mercenary syndicates, and black market intelligence rings. That meant Earth's location might not be secure anymore. Behind Marcus, the barriers shimmered before opening. Guards poured into the arena wearing heavier exosuits than before. Their translators crackled with orders as they surrounded both him and the defeated champion. They ignored Krull Tor's attempts to rise and grabbed Marcus with electric clamps that locked onto his arms. The metal hissed against his skin. "Release me," Krull Tor growled, swiping weakly at the nearest guard. "You will not touch this warrior." His declaration only made the guards drag him harder. Marcus did not fight them yet. He let his muscles loosen just enough to be lifted from the sand. He needed to understand where they were taking him. He needed to see the facility beyond the arena. More importantly, he needed to see the person who controlled the broadcast. The guards shoved Marcus through the gate and into a narrow metal corridor lined with vents that smelled faintly of coolant and sterilizing fumes. The sounds of the crowd faded behind him. The floor vibrated slightly beneath his feet, each step sinking with machinery deeper in the complex. He catalogued everything. Every corner. Every guard. Every vent large enough to crawl through. Every vibration that revealed hidden passages or maintenance shafts. The corridor opened into a command chamber elevated above the arena. Rows of consoles displayed camera feeds, orbital scans, and encrypted communication streams. Standing at the center was Warden Zal Tru, a tall, pale-skinned Vortak with long tendrils where hair should be. Marcus recognized him from overheard guard chatter. Zal Tru was a man who profited from secrets more than violence. His yellow eyes flicked to Marcus with a mix of irritation and curiosity. "You broke the cuffs. Interesting. The humans I purchased before lack such refinement." Marcus tilted his head. "Next time buy better cuffs." Several operators hissed at the remark. Zal Tru simply studied him longer, his tendrils twitching. "You are not the soldier they told me you were. You are something more. It is rare that a human surprises me. Enjoy it while it lasts." The warden tapped a control panel and the screens behind him shifted. All feeds in the room displayed Marcus's fight with Krull Tor, replayed from every angle. Overlays marked analytics, biometric readings, and tactical predictions. The warden let the footage loop once more before speaking again. "Now the galaxy has seen you. And every shadow market has paid to watch you." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. That meant someone out there now recognized N7 training. Someone might even identify him by gait or strike pattern. Someone dangerous. Zal Tru leaned closer, his voice softening. "The crowd believes you are a miracle. But I know better. You are valuable. Humans seldom are." Marcus held his stare. "What do you want from me?" Zal Tru smiled with thin, unpleasant lips. "Simple. You will fight again. And again. Until your death becomes the most profitable broadcast in the history of this station." Marcus breathed slowly. Not with fear but with strategy. He needed access. He needed time. He needed to find out why this place had Earth artifacts before and what else they were hiding. The guards dragged him toward a reinforced cell as the warden's final words trailed behind him like a warning. "The Empire wants a show. So tomorrow, human, you face not one champion. You face 3. Marcus let the cell door slam shut. He sank to The cell lights dimmed to a pale blue as night mode activated across the station, but Marcus sat awake, elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the reinforced door. The hum of distant machinery settled into a low rhythmic throb, the kind that echoed through a structure built too quickly and maintained too cheaply. It told him the arena complex was larger than it appeared, with sections carved into the asteroid's interior. Somewhere beneath him, Krull Tor lay in recovery, probably demanding explanations. Somewhere above him, Warden Zal Tru counted projected credit streams. And somewhere within the walls, hidden among the noise, Marcus could hear faint electronic pulses that did not match the warden's systems. Someone else was tapping into the arena broadcast. Someone covert. Someone dangerous. He took a slow breath and leaned back, pretending to rest as the vents hissed recycled air. Hours later, heavy footsteps approached. The cell doors slid open and 2 armored guards stepped in. Each carried a shock baton longer than Marcus's forearm, humming with energy. They gestured silently, expecting compliance. Marcus rose with loose shoulders and calm eyes, letting them take each arm. One of them muttered something about the human being lighter than expected, and Marcus considered demonstrating how wrong that was, but he held still. The corridor outside was brighter, harsher, and filled with the metallic scent of sharpened blades and combat oils. Posters and holograms of past battles flickered along the walls, depicting champions mid-swing, triumphant, roaring. Most of them showed Krultor crushing opponents in creative ways. One poster displayed a skeletal reptilian creature dissolving a rival in a pool of acid. Another showed a massive insectoid ripping apart a mech suit with its mind. They were preparing him. They wanted him afraid. He wasn't. The guards escorted him through a curving hall and into a chamber where Warden Zal True waited behind a transparent barrier. The warden's tendrils swayed lazily as he studied Marcus with an expression somewhere between fascination and contempt. Today you face 3 of my finest, human. Each represents a different species from the Outer Ring colonies. Each has ended their opponents with efficiency and spectacle. The warden tapped a panel and 3 images appeared in midair. A reptilian brute with venom sacs bulging along its jaw. An insectoid with too many limbs and eyes that glowed faint purple. And a towering giant with metallic implants along its arms and spine, designed to enhance gravity fields. Marcus let the holograms rotate slowly. He studied each one for weaknesses. The reptilian brute likely relied on chemical attacks. Weak to heat and sudden motion. The insectoid had telekinetic capabilities, but its thorax was fragile. The giant was the most dangerous, but modifications often came with instability. Probably short bursts of power rather than sustained force. Zal True mistook his silence for fear and smiled. Your death will be exquisite. The crowd adores a desperate final struggle. Marcus nodded politely. I will make sure they get one. The guards tensed at the confidence in his voice. He was taken to the preparation chamber, which for him meant a corner of the room with a single metal bench and a cup of mineral-infused water that smelled faintly like rust. Around him other fighters were being fitted with armor, injected with stimulants, and painted with symbols meant to intimidate. Marcus received nothing. Only the hostile stares of other captives who had witnessed his earlier fight. 2 insectoid warriors whispered in cliques about the human with the broken cuffs. A bulky creature with plated shoulders glanced at Marcus and then looked away quickly, as if avoiding a curse. The first gate opened. The arena roared to life again, brighter and louder than before. The sand had been replaced with a darker, coarser grit that clung to the soles of his feet. Above him, giant screens replayed his takedowns of Krultor, each angle showing how human agility crushed alien strength. The crowd was divided now, some chanting for his death, others cheering the unpredictability he brought. The reptilian brute was already in the pit, pacing with a low growl, venom steaming from its nostrils. Marcus stepped forward, flexing his fingers, calculating distance, temperature, airflow. The reptilian lunged without warning, jaws spraying a mist of corrosive toxins. Marcus dropped low, rolling through the dust, snatching a handful of sand as he rose. The reptile pivoted for another blast, but Marcus stepped into its blind angle, driving the sand upward into its face. The grit clogged its vents, diluting the venom. The creature recoiled, eyes blinking rapidly. Marcus moved in, grabbed the side of its jaw, and slammed its head into the ground. The collision knocked it out instantly. The audience shrieked, some enraged, some electrified. He did not pause. The next gate opened as guards dragged the reptile away. The insectoid scuttled in with unsettling speed, limbs tapping against the arena floor in sharp staccato patterns. Its telekinetic aura shimmered faintly. Marcus watched its energy pulses, counting the rhythm. When it lashed out, hurling a wave of force, he timed a sidestep and let the impact crater the ground beside him. The insectoid tilted its head, confused that he had anticipated the invisible attack. Marcus sprinted toward one of the arena lights embedded in the wall. He grabbed a fist-sized rock, hurled it at the fixture, and shattered the protective shield. Light burst outward, blinding the insectoid. Its aura flickered. Marcus moved in, drove his knee into its thorax, and the creature collapsed, gasping in rapid clicking patterns. 2 fights down. Now the arena fell into a hush so deep Marcus could hear his own breathing. The final gate slowly opened as steam poured out. The giant emerged, taller and broader than Krull, metal implants glowing along its arms. Each step made the ground tremble. Marcus watched the implants dim and flare, confirming his theory. Limited bursts. High energy. The giant raised its hand and a gravitational pulse slammed into the ground where Marcus had stood. He rolled aside, dust spiraling upward in strange distortions. The giant charged, roaring as its implants lit up again, but Marcus darted past its reach, forcing it to turn sharply. Those implants drained power quickly and the giant's own bulk worked against it. Marcus waited for the moment the glow flickered. Then he moved. He sprinted beneath the giant's legs, slammed his shoulder into the back of its knee joint, and the massive creature fell forward, catching itself on its hands. Marcus climbed its back in 2 quick strides, struck one implant with a sharp elbow, and the metal cracked. Electricity spat outward. The giant roared in pain and confusion before collapsing entirely, limbs heavy and trembling. The crowd exploded in disbelief. 3 champions defeated in minutes. Marcus stood in the center of the pit, sweat streaking down his face, muscles burning, heart steady. But the triumph lasted only seconds. Above the arena, Zal Tru's expression had changed. Not fear. Not anger. Calculation. The warden activated a private channel and his voice echoed directly into Marcus's translator node. You are wasting your potential as a corpse. I require a new arrangement. Something. Marcus was escorted out of the arena through a different corridor this time, one that sloped downward and vibrated with heavier machinery. The guards were quieter than usual, almost careful, as if they feared brushing too close to him. He let them lead him, his breathing under control despite the burning exhaustion in his limbs. 3 battles had pushed him, but they had also given him something more valuable than rest would have, a map of the arena's structure from the sound of footsteps, the temperature of air vents, and the subtle shifts in pressure under his feet. Every sense was gathering data. They reached a heavily reinforced door that slid open with a thick metallic groan. Inside was a chamber lit by cold blue light. It was not a cell. It was an archive room. Shelves lined the walls, holding relics, gadgets, and sealed containers. The air had a sterile chill that made Marcus's skin tighten. Warden Zal Tru stood in the center, stroking one of his tendrils as if contemplating a rare insect. He gestured to the guards, who stepped back but kept their rifles ready. Marcus scanned the room in one slow sweep. A human combat helmet rested on a pedestal, cracked but unmistakably N7. A rifle lay in a transparent case beside it, the kind used only by his Special Operations Division. A data tablet with Earth markings sat silently on a shelf, its screen flickering with corrupted text. For a moment Marcus forgot to breathe. He stepped toward the helmet. Zal Tru watched him like a scientist observing a specimen. You recognize these? Of course you do. Humans bring conflict wherever they go. That makes them interesting. Marcus lifted the helmet, running a thumb along the familiar engraving near the visor. Burns and impact dents told a story he already knew too well. This belonged to Sergeant Harlow, his teammate who had vanished during their last mission. His throat tightened and he set the helmet down carefully. Where did you get this? Marcus asked. His voice was calm but his heartbeat surged. The warden walked in a slow circle around him. From a wreck near the Calyx Belt. A human ship destroyed by unknown assailants. Some bodies. Some survivors. And some were taken. Marcus turned. Taken. Alive. Zal Tru clicked his tongue. For a time. They proved quite profitable. Humans often do. A cold fury rose inside Marcus, but he forced his face to stay blank. What happened to them? The warden walked toward another shelf and tapped a small metal canister. They were sold. Experiments. Arenas. A few ended quickly. One escaped. Marcus's pulse hit a sharp beat. Who escaped? The warden shrugged with theatrical boredom. A human male. Tall. Scar on his left jaw. Excellent fighter. Terrible attitude. Marcus felt the world narrow to a single point. Reed. Commander Reed. His former N7 leader. The man who had been reported dead. The man who had given Marcus his last mission order. Zaltru raised his tendrils in amusement. I assume this interests you. Marcus focused his breath. Where is he now? The warden's yellow eyes glowed with cunning. A higher bidder acquired him. Someone who wanted access to Earth's defensive protocols. Someone who believes your kind is useful only when controlled. The words settled over Marcus like dust from an explosion. Reed controlled by someone else. Or worse, willingly cooperating. Before he could ask more, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights strobed along the ceiling. The guards snapped to attention and Zaltru hissed in irritation. He tapped a console and a live feed opened. Riot in Section 4. Prisoners have breached containment. The screens showed chaos. Doors ripped open. Fighters Marcus had seen preparing earlier were charging down corridors. Among them he recognized the warrior nun alien, the one with silver eyes and the tattooed crest on her forehead. And behind her, limping but determined, was Krultor. Marcus allowed a small grin. He had not expected the giant to join a revolt, but Krultor had his own sense of honor. Zaltru slammed a fist into the console. Seal the lower levels. Flush the air ducts. Arm the guardians. This will not spread. Marcus took a slow step backward. The guards turned to restrain him, but he was already moving. He pivoted, grabbed one guard's arm, twisted it sharply until the rifle snapped upward, and fired a burst into the ceiling. Sparks rained as lights broke. He slammed the second guard into the wall, knocking the wind out of him. The warden screeched and reached for the emergency lock panel, but Marcus lunged forward, grabbed the warden's wrist, and slammed it into the console. The door behind Marcus slid open before Zaltru could override it. Marcus ran into a dim hallway that smelled of coolant and old wiring. Sirens wailed. Prisoners shouted. He passed a room filled with confiscated gear and kicked the door open. Inside were crates of alien tech, weapon prototypes, and tools he recognized. He grabbed a combat knife, a broken visor he could still use for limited scanning, and a wrist pad that hummed with encrypted data. He strapped it on as he moved. He needed every advantage. The hallway opened into a massive corridor where riot sirens echoed so loudly it made the walls vibrate. Prisoners fought guards amid flashing lights and drifting smoke. Marcus ducked under a wild plasma bolt, pushed through a crowd, and grabbed an alien who was fumbling with a gate control. Move! The alien jumped aside, and Marcus slammed his hand onto the panel. The gate clanked upward. Krultor thundered through with a roar that shook dust loose from the ceiling. He spotted Marcus and stomped toward him. Human. You fight well. I fight with you now. Marcus almost laughed. I'll take it. They pushed deeper into the facility, moving past collapsed beams and malfunctioning lights. Marcus led them using the map in his memory, following air currents and faint machinery sounds. The deeper they went, the more the station changed. Cold, sterile corridors gave way to older tunnels carved into the asteroid rock. He followed the instinct that had kept him alive long before he ever wore N7 armor. Something important was hidden down here. At the end of a narrow passage they reached a sealed blast door. Marcus activated the stolen wrist pad and cracked the warden's access code. The door groaned open. Inside was a circular chamber filled with holographic displays projecting star maps, intercepted transmissions, and encrypted logs. Marcus stepped closer, reading lines of text flickering across a console. One message repeated in red. Transfer complete. Asset designated Reed. Delivery confirmed. Marcus's breath froze. Reed was alive. Reed was part of something bigger. Something coordinated. Something aimed at Earth. Behind him Tor rumbled. Human. You look angry. Marcus stared at the screen, jaw set. Not angry. Focused. He turned toward the exit as distant explosions shook the walls. The station was collapsing into chaos. But now Marcus knew the truth. Reed was not a ghost. And he was not a prisoner. He was working with the enemy. Marcus stepped back into the smoke-lit hallway, ready for the war ahead. The chamber trembled as another explosion rippled through the facility, dust drifting down from the ceiling like falling snow. Marcus stood facing the glowing red text on the console, the message repeating over and over, each line hitting harder than the last. Asset designated Reed. Delivery confirmed. He felt the heat of Tor's breath at his back as the giant leaned closer, trying to understand the human's sudden stillness. Marcus blinked once, shutting away the surge of memories that struck him with violent force. Long nights training with Reed. Missions where they had trusted each other without hesitation. The last look before the ambush. He exhaled slowly and turned away from the screen. The past would not help him now. Only the truth would. The floor quaked again, this time so violently that a chunk of ceiling tore loose and slammed into the ground with a dull clang. Tor caught Marcus's arm, steadying him. Everything falls, the giant muttered. Walls, lies, empires. This one falls loud. Marcus did not answer. He strode toward the corridor with renewed urgency, boots crunching over scattered debris. Smoke curled around the corners. Distant screams mixed with the metallic shrieks of opening gates and malfunctioning machinery. The riot had spread across multiple levels, and the arena station was becoming a battlefield filled with improvised weapons, broken restraints, and fighters claiming freedom with raw desperation. As Marcus pushed through the chaos, a group of prisoners charged past, armed with stolen rifles and jagged metal scraps. One of them, the warrior nun with silver eyes and a carved crest across her forehead, stopped in front of Marcus. She grinned with sharp teeth, her voice low and melodic. The human who broke the champion. You walk like someone chasing a shadow. Marcus didn't slow. I found the shadow. Now I need the source. She fell into step beside him, spinning a captured staff weapon with effortless grace. The warden flees to the upper levels. He guards something there. Something important. Marcus met her gaze briefly. Then we go up. Together, the three of them surged through the corridor. Alarms wailed so loudly they felt like needles behind Marcus's eyes. Sparks burst from shattered wiring as a power conduit snapped overhead. The floor trembled again, and a blast door attempted to seal, but Tor shoved his massive shoulder into it and forced it open with a roar. They emerged into a control base swarming with guards. Marcus dove behind a fallen support beam as plasma bolts peppered the floor around him. The warrior nun flipped forward, her staff cracking against a guard's visor and dropping him instantly. Tor barreled through the center, scattering exosuit-clad soldiers like they were made of cloth. Marcus moved with precision, closing distance in fluid bursts of motion. He ducked beneath a rifle swing, jammed his knee into a guard's stomach, and wrenched the weapon free. He fired 2 short bursts into the ceiling supports above a cluster of guards. The beams collapsed, trapping them beneath twisted metal. Tor stomped another soldier into unconsciousness while shouting in triumph. The warrior nun dispatched the final guard and bowed slightly. The way is clear. But something felt wrong. Too easy. Too quiet. That suspicion sharpened when a soft metallic click echoed behind Marcus. He spun just as a concealed panel slid open across the room. A lone figure stepped out, moving with practiced confidence. His posture was familiar. His gait unmistakable. The scar on his jaw caught the flicker of emergency lights. Commander Reed. For a moment the noise of the riot faded away, replaced by the sound of Marcus's pulse accelerating. Reed looked unchanged, except for the new armor shaped from Vortac alloys, fitted to his frame with a precision that betrayed high status among the enemy. Reed's eyes flickered across the room, settling on Marcus with a mixture of calculation and something colder. You're persistent, Hale. I thought the explosion would be enough to keep you dead. Marcus stepped forward, jaw tightening. You sold out your team. You betrayed Earth. Reed's expression barely shifted. Earth betrayed itself. Weak alliances. Weak leaders. Weak vision. The galaxy is evolving, Marcus. We either evolve with it or get crushed beneath it. Marcus felt heat rise under his skin. You gave our intel to slavers. You let our people be tortured. Reed scoffed. They volunteered for survival. Those who couldn't adapt were wasted potential. Krull Tor rumbled angrily behind Marcus. This one speaks like a coward. Marcus lifted a hand to stop him. He kept his eyes locked on Reed. Why did you do it? Reed folded his arms. Control. Influence. Leadership. The Vortak understands strength. Earth understands fear. Joining them was inevitable. Marcus lunged. Reed reacted with the reflexes of someone who had trained beside him for years. Their fists met in midair with a crack that vibrated down Marcus's arm. Reed pivoted, driving a kick toward Marcus's ribs. Marcus blocked with his forearm and countered with a sharp elbow that grazed Reed's jaw. The men circled, years of shared combat knowledge turning the duel into a deadly chess match. Marcus struck low. Reed dodged high. Reed aimed a strike at Marcus's shoulder. Marcus anticipated and redirected the momentum, flipping Reed onto his back. Before he could capitalize, a thunderous boom shook the floor. The arena's main power core had begun to overload. Warden Zal True's voice crackled through a nearby speaker, frantic and distorted. Initiate self-destruct. Contain the uprising. Seal all exits. Reed smirked as he rolled to his feet. You're too late, Hale. This place will burn. And you with it. Marcus lunged again, but Reed darted backward toward an ascending platform. The floor panels closed around him as he vanished into the upper command deck. Marcus punched the platform edge, frustration burning through him before he forced the emotion aside. The warrior nun stepped beside him. The station will collapse soon. You must choose your path now. Marcus inhaled slowly. The path was already chosen. Sirens escalated as the ceiling lights flickered violently. The ground heaved beneath their feet. In the distance, prisoners screamed as fire spread through the corridors. Marcus turned and sprinted back the way they had come, Krull Tor and the warrior nun following close behind. They reached a wide maintenance tunnel that sloped upward toward the launch bay. But halfway through, the walls shook and a blast door slammed down ahead of them. Reed appeared again through a crackling holoscreen embedded into the wall, his expression cold. Goodbye, Marcus. Earth will follow you into ash soon enough. He pressed a control. The tunnel lights turned red, indicating the self-destruct countdown had begun in this sector. Marcus stared at the screen, breathing hard, mind racing. Then Krull Tor suddenly roared and threw his entire weight against the blast door. It buckled. Marcus and the warrior nun joined him. Together they forced the metal upward inch by inch until it snapped free. Heat blasted them from the other side as systems failed and circuits burned. They pushed through, emerging into a smoke-filled chamber where escape pods dangled from damaged rails. Alarms blared in every direction. The structure groaned. But the pods were still intact. Marcus grabbed a control panel, overriding the lock with the stolen wrist pad. He looked back once, eyes hard. Reed had triggered the station's death. But Marcus wasn't dying here. Not while Reed was still out there. The escape pod shuddered violently as it tore through the debris cloud, fragments of the arena station smashing against the reinforced hull like stones against a shield. Marcus braced his shoulders against the vibrating interior, keeping his grip firm on the stabilizer handle as the pod spun once, twice, and then leveled out with a jolting thud. Krull Tor groaned, one massive hand pressed to the ceiling to steady himself, while the warrior nun sat cross-legged on the floor with the unshaken calm of someone who had survived far worse storms. Outside the viewport, the explosion bloomed into a massive fireball, lighting up the star field in waves of orange and blue. The arena, the warden, the cells, the screams, the echoes of the battles he had fought were swallowed into the void. But the one thing Marcus needed most had not died in that explosion. Reed was alive. and Reed had fled. The pod drifted in the silence of open space for a few seconds before the onboard console flickered to life. System stabilized. Oxygen levels balanced. One red light, however, continued flashing. Unauthorized transmission detected. Marcus leaned toward the console, tapping a series of commands. A scrambled message played through the speakers, distorted through layers of encryption. He recognized the cadence immediately. Reed. His voice was sharp and controlled, threaded with arrogance. To all Coalition operatives. The human asset has escaped containment. Proceed with Phase 3 assault preparations. Earth defenses will fall within projected timelines. Marcus inhaled sharply. That was confirmation. Reed wasn't just a traitor. He wasn't working under coercion. He was part of a larger network planning an invasion. Krul growled, a deep rumble that shook the floor. Your enemy speaks boldly. Marcus nodded without looking away from the screen. Bolder than he should. The warrior nun tilted her head as if listening to distant echoes. Humans fight for home. But what do you fight for now? Marcus stared at his reflection in the console screen. He saw exhaustion, dust, bruises, and eyes sharpened by truth. For Earth. For my team. For whatever Reed is trying to destroy. The console beeped as a proximity alert sounded. A large vessel approached from the left, sliding into view like a shadow unfolding from the darkness. A Vortak warship, unmistakable in its silhouette. Marcus reached for the emergency thruster control, but the warrior nun placed a hand over his wrist. They are not preparing weapons. They are scanning. The scan washed over the pod, illuminating the interior with a soft blue glow. Marcus braced himself. If they recognized him, they might destroy the pod on sight. But the glow faded and the ship did nothing. Krul squinted at the viewport. They do not see a threat. They see wreckage. Marcus understood quickly. The escape pod's emergency shield was mimicking the signature of debris. They were invisible for now. The warship drifted away, engines humming. Marcus let the tension drain from his shoulders. But relief lasted only a breath before another alert chimed. Fuel reserves at critical. The pod was not meant for long travel. They needed a ship. A real ship. Marcus pulled up the navigation logs. The arena station had maintained several outbound transport routes, one of which led to a remote hangar asteroid used for illegal trade. 106 kilometers away. Too far for the pod. But close enough that a controlled drift combined with thruster bursts might reach it. Marcus entered the coordinates. The pod angled itself, engines sputtering. The warrior nun closed her eyes and began whispering a prayer to a deity Marcus did not recognize. Krul folded his arms, accepting whatever fate came. Marcus strapped himself in. They had maybe 20 minutes of power left. As the pod drifted through the star-filled void, Marcus replayed Reed's message in his mind. The voice was cold. Calculated. His former commander had once told him that Earth's greatest flaw was its belief that the galaxy played by the same rules. Now Reed was preparing to prove it. Marcus tightened his grip on the armrest. Reed had always been ambitious, but turning against his own species crossed a line that Marcus never thought he would see. And if Reed had given alien warlords access to Earth's defense patterns, then the invasion he threatened might already be in motion. The pod jolted. Krul pointed at the viewport. A cluster of asteroids drifted ahead, jagged and turning slowly. The navigation system beat frantically as Marcus adjusted the angle, weaving the pod between spinning rocks. They scraped past one boulder so closely that sparks burst along the hull. The warrior nun grinned. You fly like a mad spirit. Marcus didn't answer. He steered through the asteroid field with precise adjustments, sweat forming at his hairline. Finally, the hangar asteroid appeared in view. A dull metallic structure built into rock, glowing faintly with outdated beacon lights. Marcus exhaled and activated the final thruster burst. The pod shot forward, slammed into the docking ring, and slid to a rough stop. The interior lights flickered then died. Krul kicked the hatch open with one mighty stomp. They climbed out into a dimly lit passage coated in dust and the smell of engine oil. The hangar was mostly silent except for the hum of distant machinery. Marcus moved forward cautiously, scanning the shadows. Old crates littered the floor. Abandoned equipment lay in piles. Then he saw it. A ship. Sleek, dark, angular. A mid-range Vortax stealth vessel. Perfect. As they approached, a faint clatter echoed from behind a cargo container. Marcus raised his knife. Krull Tor lowered his stance. The warrior nun's eyes glowed faintly. A figure emerged. Thin. Metallic fingers. A humanoid robot, half damaged and sparking. It raised its hands. Do not crush me. I am friendly. Krull Tor paused and glanced at Marcus. Marcus stepped closer. Who are you? The robot straightened, its voice crackling. Designation JS-22. Maintenance Unit. I witnessed your arena battles. I also wish to not die today. Marcus allowed himself a brief breath of relief. Can you fly this vessel? JS-22's eyes flickered. Not well. But better than you organic creatures. They boarded the ship. The interior was cramped but functional. Marcus moved to the command console, tapping through controls until the engines purred to life. The robot took the co-pilot seat, limbs twitching as it interfaced with the system. Coordinates, it requested. Marcus entered Earth's approximate location. The robot blinked. That is far. And dangerous. Marcus nodded. I know. Krull Tor settled into a reinforced seat, while the warrior nun sat with her staff across her knees. Marcus took one final look at the hangar. The moment he had escaped the arena's shadow, he felt the weight of something larger resting on his shoulders. Earth was no longer safe. Reed had ensured that. And if Marcus didn't reach home in time, the invasion Reed promised would sweep across his planet with unstoppable force. He gripped the throttle. Engines flared. The ship rose from the hangar floor and shot into space. As the stars streaked past the cockpit glass, a transmission crackled through the comm system. Marcus stiffened. It was faint, buried in static. Then a familiar voice emerged. N7 command to hail. Signal received. Repeat, signal received. Marcus.